Hello, Women's Empowerment Project. I'm super excited to get started with you all. We're starting this 4-week journey, and it starts right here with this very event. As a collective, at least, I've already met with you personally to get your intentions set. And so now what we have to follow is education that I'm going to bring, teaching the things that I think are the most important, valuable things based on what I know of you and based on what I know of me and coaching and helping women heal in my experiences. So these teachings are going to take place. There should be 4 of them. This is the first one. They'll be posted once a week on Saturdays, or they may not be Saturdays depending on when you're taking this, but they're going to be posted once a week. And you will have the opportunity to watch this and do the activities at your own pace. I recommend that you do that in a way where you can be fully present here. So if you have to listen for 5 minutes, watch for 5 minutes, and then pause it and come back later, that's fine. If all you have is 5 minutes, or if you're full in 5 minutes, just like it's so much information you just want to digest for a while, it's perfect. That's what this format is for. So feel free to pause and stop if you need to. The most important thing is for you to take in the information that I'm giving because I'm doing it very intentionally. So take your time with this. I will be both teaching things and then giving you activities to put this stuff into work for you. So do that, and then we will be having a call in the next few days where you will have an opportunity to ask questions. So it's better to watch these sooner than later, although whatever you get between now and the call is good. Take what you can and then ask questions, any questions that you have based off of that. So today I'm going to be talking about the biology of women. It's one of the most important things that I get to teach, and it's one of the most important things for me to understand about myself on a daily basis because essentially as human beings, the fascinating thing about being us is that we can get in conflict with ourselves, which is different than basically any other species, anything out there, right? We have different parts of ourselves, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the different parts of ourselves, but also why women have such a challenge with it, and more so why women have a challenge being powerful in that. We all have a challenge in every human being, but women trying to be in their power, maybe autonomous and independent especially, or self-focused, is very difficult. And you know that, like you know this already, but I'm going to get into specifically why and specifically how I have learned to move onward, just keep moving onward, and essentially challenge the wiring that we have as women when I want to, and then know when I'm choosing to not challenge that wiring and go with my biology or go with my instinct as opposed to rising above it or trying to work around it or through it. Sometimes that's actually the easier route, the smarter, wiser route. So sit back. I'm going to be sharing the screen with different visuals today. And then anything that I show up on the screen, I will also give you in the course. So it's downloadable as just a file. It'll be a different type of file depending, but you can download anything that I show you on this screen. You don't have to worry about, feverishly writing it down or something. You'll have access to it later. And if for whatever reason there's something I don't post, let me know and I can post it up there. So you can write and take notes, but at this time I'd say make yourself comfortable, sit back, and maybe get yourself something to write with, and we will get started. All right. So the place where I'm going to get us started is about the brain. And this is about the human brain. I'm going to just start talking about the human brain. I won't do this for too long because some people have a really high tolerance for talking about this stuff. Some people don't. So I'm going to try to keep it middle of the road, the information that you need, but not getting into the whole neurology of everything. So we're going to talk about the biology, like the human brain. And then I'm going to talk more specifically about the female human brain and what makes that an interesting specimen. So let me share my screen with you. This is the brain. And what I like about this diagram of the brain is that it shows what I think are the most important centers going on. And there are, you could say there are three. This shows three, but it shows the three kind of different levels of evolution going on in our brain. And this is so special that we have this system. We're the only creatures walking around who have a system that's what I would call this advanced. And it's also just as reptilian as a lot of the creatures, like a lizard running around on the ground, or a bird at the bird feeder, or a squirrel that's hopping on the electrical wires, right? So we have those parts as well. And then we also have these parts that are so advanced and evolved, more evolved than any other animal. So we have this instinctive brain that's just like any reptile scampering around out in nature, and it tells us when we need to eat, when we need to do something to like fight, have sex, protect ourselves, these sorts of things. It tells us when we need to eat and when something's going to help our survival, right? So there's a part of our brain that's just looking out for our survival, and we'll get much more into that when we talk about when I talk about women. Our emotional brain, this limbic system, is very sensitive in women, but this is a little more evolved, right? So more like mammals out in the world have this brain. So they're this part of their brain. So a little more advanced, a little more evolved, a little bit more sophisticated is the mammalian brain. This gives us the ability to kind of feel each other on an intuitive level, where like a lizard scampering around can't necessarily do that. It's clueless about how other things are feeling. So mammals can actually feel, not necessarily empathy, but they can feel what's going on with somebody else. So we have this, which is also an instinct. It's pre-verbal. It's not something that's necessarily human. It doesn't necessarily translate into words. It's just still this instinct, right? Because there are lots of animals running around that have the system, but they don't have language like we do. They don't have sophisticated language like we do. They do have language, but okay, so we have these survival instinctual systems that are very, what I would call unevolved, or very primitive is a good word. These systems in the middle. And then we have this whole outer part, it's our cortex, our thinking centers is what they call it, but it's our frontal cortex, and it's kind of just all that shriveled up tissue. In women it looks a little bit different. In men it takes up more space. In women it's the same amount of tissue, but it's squeezed into the skull tighter because we have a smaller head. So this part of our brain has us empathize with other human beings. This is what sets us aside from, say, the birds at the bird feeder that just run each other off when they want to eat. They just run the bird off of the bird feeder when they want to eat. We as humans will stand in the Starbucks line, right? And so, so we have all of this going on. We have all of this going on, and we're not above any of this. In fact, when this instinctive brain or the emotional brain get triggered or alerted, they will trump that cortex because they're our survival system. And when our system is designed so that if our survival is threatened or we think our survival is threatened in some ways, that system will override our empathic thinking or our sophisticated thinking or our consideration sort of thinking. Also, the sort of thinking that is emotionally self-preserving, not physically self-preserving, but emotionally and relationally self-preserving. Okay, so we have all sorts of, you can probably tell just by looking at this, that we have a lot of conflicts that happen inside of us. This creates a lot of internal conflict. We want to eat, but we don't want to gain weight, or we want to get the attention of that man, but that doesn't actually feel good because he's not that good of a guy. Or we have a lot of chemistry built with this person, but it doesn't make sense because they're not a good fit for us. We have a lot of passion for some part of our lives, but we don't actually want to go after that because it doesn't work for us in some way, shape, or form. Right, so we have a lot of different centers in our system that are giving us a lot of different pieces of information, and we have to decide what to do. Do we do the instinctual thing, or do we do the higher level, more evolved thing to do? All right, so I'll come back to me here. Okay, so I'll give some more specific examples about ways that these three parts of our brain kind of represent themselves in our everyday lives, and hopefully help you to see ways in which you can pinpoint when they're running or when they're activated in your everyday life. And one of the things I'm going to ask you all to do, at least during this week, and I think really going forward, if you take to it, if you find it to be helpful, is to notice when one of these three parts of your brain is kind of running you. It's like driving the car. And it's one of the challenges of being human, I think, is an evolved human who wants to be self-aware and who wants to choose, to have the freedom to choose between 1, 2, and 3. What do you want to be running you right now? I think the challenge is being self-reflective enough and using enough strength and courage and focus to make that decision and to do what needs to be done to like sharpen those tools so we do have that freedom. So we'll start with this really instinctual reptilian part of our brain. And this part of our brain specifically will tell us basic things like we need to eat. All right, so I know for me, my blood sugar will drop and I'll literally feel the sensation. It'll start at my head and it'll just feel like it's draining. Like literally the energy is being drained out of my body, and my sugar can get unstable if I have like too many carbs or not enough food. It actually happened to me in a session the other day. And so that's the instinctual body saying you need to eat now. It tells us our very basic needs. It tells us something like the other thing that I think on an everyday basis we feel this part is in traffic if we're driving, or if we're just riding in a car and something's going on that maybe threatens or impacts our safety. It'll tell us, that instinctual brain will tell us somebody's threatening you. Or if we're walking down the street, say it's like dark or we're in a dark alleyway or something weird, we hear something weird, there's someone who's like talking to themselves or something shady's going down. That instinctual part of our brain kicks in and it's telling us, usually through our nervous or adrenaline or sympathetic nervous system, it's telling us, protect yourself, something's unsafe. Okay. So that's the instinctual part of our brain. The mammalian part of our brain, that emotional center, I think really is more like our gut. It's sort of like our gut intuition. And it brings like the emotional richness, which is women. It's very active. So it brings the waves and the flows of feelings. They're all, we have all the up feelings, we have all the down feelings, all the middle of the road feelings, but it's sort of guiding us in this emotional sort of way. It's giving us sensations. Some may be physical, but some may be emotional in nature. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes, but this is we're all feeding off each other, right? And I don't know if any of you have felt this, but I'll walk down the sidewalk sometimes, and I'll be walking this way, and another person will be coming this way. And as they walk by, when I focus my attention on them, I literally feel them. And some of it I can put into words, like I can feel there's something somber happening in their day, or they're feeling very light and cheerful, right? Or I can tell that person has a lot of depth, and maybe my practice as a therapist gives me this as well. But I think that on some level, whether we can label it or not, with each person we come in contact with, we feel connected to them, even if it's just a brief little pass on the sidewalk, or if it's someone we live with, right? We're feeling each other, and our system is designed to do that. It's designed to pick up on what that person is feeling, because instinctually, survival-wise, we're creatures of community. So we have to be very mindful about who we surround ourselves with, because if they have certain types of energies going on, we're going to take that on. So this brings us richness, and it also kind of like sits in our gut and informs us on what to do, what not to do, what feels good, what feels bad. Okay. Now we have the cortex, right? So this is our most evolved feature. This is what sets us apart from every other human. This is what is fueling this class, right? This part of my brain is very much fueling the inspiration for this class. And if there's one word I could use to describe it, I would say spirit. As humans, our spirit it seems to transcend kind of everything when we're mindful. In our what I would consider to be some of our finest moments, we tend to be very mindful and sort of can rise above those different parts of our system. And so, this part of us may inspire us to do all sorts of things. We may want to have a business that inspires women to find their power, right? We may have some other sort of purpose on this planet that we really want to fulfill, or we really want to see it through to success, or through its progress. We may want to be, as people, we may want to really be in a state of improvement and growth, or we may just know who we are and just really want to be who we are. And when you started this class, you filled out the entry questionnaire and asked you all those words that you would use to describe you, and I would say those are words that are coming from this part of our brain, right? And I think this part of our brain is connected to, in the 12-step program, what they call the next right thing. which is sort of our spiritual compass. It's like, this is the right thing to do right now. This feels like the right thing. This is it aligned with your purpose. It would be the right thing to do to sit down and write in a journal right now. Or it would be the right thing to do instead of driving like a crazy person and veering in front of that person who just cut you off, to just breathe and let that drama go on without you, not engage in it. Right? It can transcend those other parts of your brain. You know, where if our emotional system is in an upheaval because we're really connected to another person, say in relationship, and we come to see that it's chronic and that part of our system cannot calm down, we may decide to leave that relationship. Right? That's our higher part of our brain saying, this is the next right thing. So this week, one of the things I want you to do is, you can try to notice in real time if you want, but not as important as just sitting down and trying to look at, maybe in the last week or last day or a few days, when these different parts of your brain were running you. It's especially helpful when you can see how it's just like eating your lunch when you're driving and you're using a lot of energy on road rage. I just moved to a different part of town where I'm driving more, and I know for me right now, it's taking me longer to get places, so I'm in more of a hurry, and so yeah, I'm using a lot more of my energy being like, I gotta move, or why do you do that? That impacted me badly, So especially these places in your life where you're doing it a lot, or it's a person who takes a large role in your life in some form or fashion, or some part of you that's regularly, so that you're regularly wanting or needing to focus on, like work or something like that. So take a look try to find some examples of times when that reptilian part of your brain was running you or activated, kind of trumping all other functions, and that emotional mammalian part of your brain was in charge, and then when your cortex, your new brain was in charge. Okay, now I'm going to transition into talking about more specifically the female brain. And when I say the female brain, let me say what I mean by that, because gender is so blurry at this point, what it even means. So I'll explain what it means. When I say the female brain, I mean a brain that's generally run by estrogen. And most people who don't have a genetic deformity of some sort, or they don't have, or they have a Y chromosome, even though they have female body parts. Generally speaking, our brains are, as females with female body parts, are running on estrogen. We have a lot of estrogen running our system. Okay, so the female brain is very different from the male brain, and they complement each other well. They do what the other does not do well. Okay, so we're doing different things. Women are over here doing this thing, and men are over here doing this thing. This is how we're wired. This is how our brains are wired, and they have not evolved with us really hardly at all. And those instinctual parts of our brain will never evolve. Our cortexes can evolve. They have the potential to, but those other parts of our brain will never evolve. They'll just keep doing what they've been doing, or maybe they will in hundreds of thousands of years. I don't know, but they haven't so far. Okay. So, just to say something about the male brain really quick. The male brain is very singularly focused. It's meant to pinpoint one single goal and go after it with all of one's focus and attention. So I'm just doing this because So focus, just hunter. Okay. Women are all over. We have what's called diffuse thinking. And if you were to take, you were looking at the side of the brain, but if you were to take a look at the brain this way from the front, just like this, you'd see it has like two halves, and in the middle, there's a little thing that's connecting it. It's called the corpus callosum. And in women, it's thick. In men, it's smaller, it's thinner. And because they don't need as much connecting the right and left sides of their brain. As women, we need a lot of tissue there because with diffuse thinking, we're gatherers. We're designed to be in a field where we're picking berries and we're watching for predators and we're looking at our children and we're planning the day. We are planning the meal. We are interacting with other women, right? So we are multitaskers. We have diffuse thinking, which means we can walk into a room and see someone with their socks on the floor over there, and the blanket is kind of like halfway hanging off. It's not straight like it was earlier in the day. The cat's over there, that door is shut, that light got left on. We just walk into a room, we see it all, okay? Men don't see things that way, by the way. They don't notice. Their brains are not designed to do that. So we're specifically designed to see all the details, all the details. So I want to take us back to talking about these three parts of our brain to just tie this in and loop this around. Let me check something and make sure I didn't forget to say something that I wanted to say. Okay, yeah, I did forget one thing that I wanted to say. Okay, before we move on to that, I wanted to say one more thing about diffuse thinking. So this ties into the next thing that I want for you to write down as something that I want you to focus on this week. So the thing that comes up with diffuse thinking for women and trying to cultivate power or trying to make progress or personal growth in our lives is that in any given moment, on any given day, we can find so many things to focus on. So many things. We got the Facebook, we got our home, we got if we have an animal, if we have a child, if we have a significant other, right? Just think about how much time is taken up. If we have a job, the work that we do and all the things we do at that workplace, because we usually do a lot of things. We pay attention to a lot of things. So women, when we are trying to cultivate power, the places, I want you to listen very carefully and I'll make this super clear and I'll repeat it. The places where we're going to find our power are the places where we're really going to move forward with our lives in the directions that we really truly want to, are where we feel the most discomfort. So we have all these options of things to focus our attention on. The ones that are going to benefit us the most, that are the most aligned to who we want to be and what we want, what would get us to the next lily pad on our lily pad journey, are the most uncomfortable. And I don't mean scary or terrifying, I just mean uncomfortable. So we are very good. We're very good at finding something else to do. We can find hella number of other things to do. So we do. We put our attention on a plethora of different things. So, and then meanwhile, we're not putting together like the business plan that would actually help provide us with the money that we need in order to really thrive or even pay our bills, right? Or that thing that's happening in our relationship that we're not saying anything about, that's just bugging us right back here in the background. But saying something about it or thinking about it would probably cause waves. And so we're gonna work on this thing for work instead. Or we're gonna do something that feels more recreational instead, or helps us numb out or tune out instead. Okay? This is so pivotal. And I'm gonna be reminding you of this all month. And I want you to get into the habit of reminding yourself and just coming back to this over and over and over and over again. As a woman entrepreneur, I can say it doesn't end. And you may be able to attest to this already. It gets a little bit easier in time. You get to see that it will move if you face it, but it doesn't ever stop. Especially when we keep growing and we keep progressing, it's still uncomfortable. The next thing will always be uncomfortable. So I want you to identify three things that you're uncomfortable about, that make you uncomfortable, that you know clearly would help move you to that next lily, help you hop off this lily pad onto the next lily pad. And the next stepping stone, however you see it, taking the next step forward in these areas that you've identified that you want to move forward in. Okay? So definitely, you don't have to do anything in particular, but I want you to get aware of 3 places that you're actively avoiding. And you can also, if you want to be an overachiever, you can notice what you'll do instead. Like, oh, I'll tune out on Facebook. Oh, I'll play with my dog. Oh, I'll pick up the phone and start texting with somebody, right? So that diffuse thinking that we have is amazing, and we have to tame it. You know, we have to be aware of how we're using it and how it may be just distracting us. Okay, good. Do you have any questions about this concept? Ask me, because it's a very pivotal concept for this class. Okay. So next I'm going to take us back to these 3 parts of our brain, and I'm going to talk specifically about the challenges that we have as women, given the way that these different parts of our brain are wired, or how we are wired in relation to these different parts of our brain. So let me go back and share the screen with you again. All right, so we'll start down at the bottom with our instinctive brain. Make sure I'm recording. Okay. Hold on just a second. Okay. So this instinctive brain in women is very tricky. It's very tricky. So the thing about the instinctive brain for women is that this is huge, we do not feel safe on our own. Period. We believe with every fiber, every cell in our system that we are not safe without a man protecting us. That's basically what our wiring is. It could be like a mommy figure, whatever. Some kind of a figure, an older, bigger, protective figure. We literally are wired to believe that we are not safe on our own. Because in caveman times, we really weren't. Because men needed women and women needed men. We were in survival mode. And it's 2018 now, so we're not in survival mode in that way anymore. Every once in a while, we do have a situation where we need protection, and maybe like a man or something would chase off a predator but you know, you may not even, if you think about this, you may not be able to even think of a time in your life that this was true. Yet still, we very much have this instinct as women. Men do not have this instinct. Men are designed to be self-sufficient, to offer their own protection. Okay, so this is really important. We feel that we need somebody else, particularly a bigger, stronger man type figure, in order to be safe and secure in our lives. Okay, so this is something that in some ways it serves us to learn to identify and override. And I'm just going to take a quick side trip here and say, some of these instincts you may choose to not override. You may want to, or have already decided to, have a husband, right? To have a husband for the rest of your life who offers protection and security in whatever ways you decide. And that is great. You decide, like, this is your decision to make. If you want freedom here, you can have that. If you don't want to have freedom here, that is totally a choice. And I honestly have no judgment about that. We have to decide how we're going to use our energy. We have to decide. And for some of us, we decide, okay, I don't want to have to worry about my security. You know, I want a big alpha husband who I feel safe with, period. And that, so that will free you up to have the energy for what you do want to spend your energy on. Or I do want a man for financial security, or some other thing for financial security, so I don't have to worry about that, so I can put my energy into something else, right? So I'm offering this I'm offering this information for you to do what feels right for you. If I don't want to have it be some kind of a instructional thing that you have to get free from this. Okay, so we choose here. So for women, we have to know that our system's going to tell us that we're not safe without big, strong somebody to protect us. Okay? Moving up to our emotional brain, I'm reading an amazing book right now called literally The Female Brain by Louann Brizendine. And she's a PhD in psychiatry or psychology, I can't remember which, but she's been studying the female brain since the 70s. Has not been an easy road for her, starting at a time when in the 70s, when the female brain was not something that was valued in the psychological community as its own special thing. So she talks so much about the emotional brain of women. This part of our brain is so active. The female brain uses this a lot because we're connected. We're designed to be connected to other people. We're designed to rear children. We're designed to nurture children and kind of protect them on the day-to-day, and to feel what the right thing is emotionally and relationally, what the right thing is to do. We bring love, we bring love and compassion, consideration, and nurturing. That's what we're designed to offer in a relationship. And so this part of our brain where we feel other people, we try to pick up on what other people are feeling, is very, very important. We're super intuitive. Women are freaking phenomenal in this way. We can just sit with another person or another woman and we experience, like we open ourselves up to experience what's happening for them. And it is such a gift. We bring such a valuable gift. It's so important that we use that in the right way, like that we use that on people who really merit it and who value it and who are worth that investment. It's an amazing gift. So in women, this part of our brain is very active, and the other piece that's very important that I'm learning through this book is that not only do we use it to nurture others, we use this part of our brain to learn who we are. we read from a very early age, we start reading other people's reactions to us emotionally, especially, to figure out who we are. Men don't do this. Women look at other people to figure out who they are. And if you think about this, because when I started reading about this, I started thinking about a lot of my clients, I started thinking about myself. And this is so true, me, that we literally focus ourselves on other people's reactions for our own benefit, and we do it in a way that we are relying on that. We're relying on feeling what another person feels in relationship to us, and then we adjust ourselves. If somebody gives us some kind of an emotional reaction, like, "Ooh, you agitate me," we adjust. Men are not designed that way. Men don't give a crap, typically. And so women are very sensitive to this, and if somebody gives us a reaction like, "You're out of line," or "You're not likable," we change. We change ourselves to be more pleasing to other people. That is another survival sense that we have. Okay, so that's something that will serve us at times, and at other times it won't, right? And you might be able to feel free to be taking notes, by the way, as I do this on ways in which this works, so you notice this in your life, right? So this in this location, if we're talking about power, this idea means that we may shut down a part of us that may actually feel really true. Like, we may just shut down when somebody has some kind of a reaction to us. And it's really important that we look at that. It's really, really important that we look at that, because, when you take stock of who you truly are and kind of who you are designed to be, what you're designed to be and represent on this planet in this lifetime, if you've shut something down because somebody gave you a bad reaction, what you really need to do in order to get back in your power is turn it back on and tell people to go screw themselves, right? If that's something that's important to you, that is you, then relinquishing that is super, super, super important, right? So this is where it's like, as women, we have a very hard time being in a leadership position, because the second it is unpopular, our reaction is to shut down. It can be very helpful in being relational and being diplomatic when we're a leader, being like, "Okay, you guys, my team doesn't like it when I talk like that, so let me try to talk a different way." Or this person, my business partner, doesn't, like, they're not responding well to me asking this of them or working with them this way, so I can adjust it some, right? So we're great in that way, and we have to be really careful. We have to be really careful about how much we're giving there, how much we're willing to negotiate, because as women, we err on the side of negotiating too much, and we lose ourselves. So we can actually learn a lot from men. There's another book that I want to tell you about. It's called Shakti Leadership, SHAKTI Leadership, which is talking about the feminine and masculine working together. And I highly recommend it, because it's basically the concept of leadership, I think, is very similar to the concept of power, really, when it comes down to it. So it's talking about what the masculine looks like, and I'll bring this up here on the screen in a little bit, what the masculine looks like when it's in power, and what the feminine looks like in a position of power and how different they are. So we can learn a lot from men who just generally in leadership, they just say, this is what I need you to do it. And when women, our instinctual way of asking, right, I just said asking, our instinctual way of leading other people is to ask them, okay, how would you feel about doing it this way? Would you do that? Right? And so there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but it's definitely it's definitely a form of making ourselves small, right? And sort of being flexible, and we can sometimes get ourselves into a pretzel position doing that. Okay, so we get into the cortex part of us, and I think that this is where we'll find our wisdom. Our cortex will give us the wisdom. It's the most evolved part of us, and it informs us when we spend time here. It informs us on things like what our purpose is and who we truly are and what we truly value. And essentially, at the end of the day, what we want to do on this planet plugs us into that, like the spirit of who we are and what our purpose is. So when we can bring ourselves back to this, I think we are most aligned and most whole. And this is also the part of our brain that's evolved with us. Like this is the current present part of our brain. This is the part of our brain that has caught up with 2018. So it can give us the most up-to-date information on, sorry, going around screens. All right. All right. So I'm gonna kind of take us on the finishing stretch here. Kind of tie a little bit together. And I'm going to take us, so I'm going to show you the books that I've been referring to. This is The Female Brain by Louanne Brizendine. And this is Shakti Leadership. I'm not even going to try to say those names, but that this woman came to Austin to speak, and she's amazing. So I highly recommend both of these books. These are the two authors that I've been researching the most for this class. There's also another author. I don't have any of her real books, but I have her ebook called Queen's Code, and I have her audiobook called In Sync with the Opposite Sex, and her name is Allison Armstrong. Doesn't really matter what you read by her or listen to by her. She has a ton of classes online. Allison Armstrong. Allison has one L. And these are the women that teach me about women and men. Allison Armstrong's taught me a lot about men. So I'm going to go to, from the Shakti Leadership book, I'm going to show their diagram. It's like a 4-quadrant diagram that I think really helps us. I think what it highlights, in light of what we've been talking about, it highlights when our cortex, our new brain, is really running the show, and it has us in our most exalted form, what it looks like, and when we're in like a lesser evolved way of being, how we're showing up. So let me share screen again. Yeah. Okay. So we can see. So there's 4 quadrants, and up at the top 2 quadrants are what we look like when we're in conscious leadership. And what I would call it is like aligned with our cortex. It's sort of us being in our highest self, and at the bottom is an unconscious leadership. The left side is the feminine, and the right side is masculine. Okay, so we as women can embody both sides, and when we choose to be both sides, which we can do, it's 2018, so we can choose to cover both of these territories, or we can choose to have somebody else cover another territory. Maybe we want to show up as more masculine. I know as the way that I was conditioned in my life, I actually show up as more masculine sometimes because I'm in that habit. And that's fine. If I want help with doing the feminine pieces by someone else, I can choose to do that. Or if I want help doing the masculine pieces, I can get help from somewhere else. Okay. But the idea is that we try to cover this ground in order for us to be fully in our power. And so specifically looking at the pieces parts of this graph, I'll just start in the most, I think the most exalted one is the top left, and that's a woman in her full feminine power. Her gifts are empathy, gentleness, inclusion, nurturing, openness, creativity, variety and flavor, trust, vulnerability, and harmony. And I think this is like estrogen, the estrogen brain at its best. And so the masculine, right, the masculine in its most exalted form shows up as clarity, assertiveness, focus, direction, order, discipline, structure, discernment, strength, and convergence. So these two ways of being, these two perspectives or these two aims work very well together. They need each other to balance each other out. And so if you are a woman and you are really singularly working on something, you want to try to embody both of these sides. And when you need guidance from the other side, finding it from somebody who embodies it in these ways, these words describe how they embody it. Okay, so I think it's important for us to understand the bottom of this too. I think it's important for us to understand when we're in a different sort of form. This isn't wrong or bad. This is just us when we're not in the most constructive place. And these words we can use as a guide to bring us back to a more constructive place, right? And this is just learning. We get into these ways of being regularly. So the idea is not that we just try to be perfect and we're bad when we're not up there on the top. The idea is we notice when we're down here on the bottom and we figure out what we need to get up to the top. That's what life is. We just a continuous loop of that. So the unconscious feminine is smothering. Oh boy, I know that one. Sentimental, needy, dependent, exploited, like a victim, unfocused, irrational, weak, and manipulative. Oh my goodness. Right? We've been there. I've been there. Heck yeah. Okay, so that's where we can feel called upon to find our power, because we're not in our power when we're there. We're in this sort of, it's called the blind spot in Shakti leadership. On the bottom right here, the male, kind of the toxic male leadership is aggressive, cruel, mechanical, arrogant, insensitive, violent, power hungry, and spiritually empty. Judge, fear, and avoid. So that's a sort of like the masculine in its less constructive form. Okay. So I think it's really important for us to understand what these different sort of forms of us look like, and use them as indicators. That's all. Use them as indicators to bring us back. Okay, so what I want you to do with this, the reason I'm showing you this, is I want you to look at a couple things. I want you to look into the past, and I want you to look into the future, and I want you to find, I like the number 3 because I just feel like it's well-rounded, but I want you to find 3 examples where you were in some quadrant here, and you can use just one word. You know what I mean? You can look at like nurturing up in that top left, and you can find a time when you were really doing that in your life, in your purpose. Okay, so a time when you embodied something in here. I want you to try to think of 3. And I want you to not just do all on the bottom and all on the top. I want you to try to do different things. So in the past, when you embodied something you see here. And then I want you to do 3 things for your future. And I want you to really look at this. I want you to use the top. I want you to really look at the words that mean the most to you. When you read these words on the top, in the top 2 quadrants, you can just feel it in your gut. What words hit you the hardest, which mean the most to you? And I want you to just kind of write a couple sentences about how you would embody that in doing whatever your purpose is, right? It could be in relationship, it could be in your career, could be any area of your life that's really important to you, that you want to be, your personal growth, that you want to be focusing this program on, that you decided to do that. Okay. So what would that look like? How would you describe the picture of, say, you in trust, right? So trust. How would you be exercising trust in the relationship that you want to cultivate? Or how would you be exercising trust in the personal growth that you see for yourself? What would that look like? So write a few sentences and pick 3. And again, just up at the top, those top 2 quadrants. Okay. If you have any questions about that, let me know. So keep in contact with me. Let me know, in real time as you're watching this. If you have questions, if you need clarification, I try to be as clear as I can, and I need you to tell me when I'm not. So bring any questions to me. I am here, and I really look forward to having our next call where we check in and we talk about how this is all sort of digesting, and as you do these activities, how that's how that's integrating into you. So thank you so much for watching. And if you have any feedback for how Teachable is working for you, let me know as well. So take care, much love, goodbye.